that's really my name. No, my parents were not hippies. I'm with Sarvey Wildlife Care Center, and I brought some people to help me today. And those people are Robert.
Hey, Robert.
Ingrid.
Hey, Ingrid.
David.
Hey, David. Say hippies.
Are you guys hippies?
I'm a wannabe hippie. I'm trying to grow my hair long.
So we take care of injured, orphaned, and sick wild animals. There's one in there now. And you guys are in for a treat because we brought some today. Now the animals we brought are not releasable, and I want to make that clear. These guys will never go back to the wild. We wouldn't use an animal we could release for education if it could be released. So, just want to get that clear. Also, I need to say that we are allowed to do what we do by permission of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. Now that I got that out of the way, we take care of animals that exist here in Washington. Sometimes we get some odd ones, and they don't really exist here, but we'll take care of it, but we have to ship it back. We have to put things back within about 10 miles of where they were found. Not too long ago, we had a snowy owl that managed to find its way to Capitol Hill. Well, 10 miles away from Capitol Hill is either water or more Capitol Hill, city. People were upset a little bit that we were releasing an owl, a wild animal, in the city. But by law, by regulation, we had to. And all the same, it was good that we did do that. Because if that owl hadn't have landed in Capitol Hill, it probably would have died. Nobody would have seen it. It would have been out in the wild and just expired. So people cared and they found it, and they contacted us, and we took care of it, and we released it. And let's say that owl should get into trouble again. Well, right there with people, somebody probably will find it again. We haven't gotten it back, so I guess it's doing fine, which is good. I'm really happy. So, you're going to see birds of prey today, but we do more than just birds of prey. We do everything from the smallest little hummingbird all the way up to cougars and bears. One year we even had an elk. And that was a successful release also. So that was nice. We even do... Ew. Ew. Somebody's always going to say, ew. Well, here's what I have to say about the skunk. The skunk is a wonderful animal. In fact, I wish I had the skill of the skunk. What? You want to be a skunk?
No.
No. Well, I don't want to be a skunk either, but I wish I had the skill of a skunk. What I mean by that is, when people are bothering you, annoying you, pestering you, how many times did you wish you could just stomp your feet, show them your rear, and have them all disappear? Perfect skill to have. Skunks do a lot of good. Skunks will eat the pests that humans use poisons to get rid of. You have a skunk in your yard? Yay! Don't corner it, you'll be fine. It'll get rid of all the pests in your yard. So skunks are good. So we have birds of prey. Does anybody know the other word for bird of prey? Starts with R.
Raptor.
Raptor, yes. What makes a raptor a raptor? It's not that it eats other animals. Because if you think about it, a heron eats other animals. A heron eats fish. But it's not a bird of prey. A robin eats worms. Is a robin a bird of prey? No. So stuff about their bodies make them birds of prey. Let's think about what's up here that would be bird of prey like. What? The beak, right? The beak. Curved upper beak. Powerful beak. What about down here? Some people say claws, and that's really close. We like to call it talons for birds of prey. But if you said claws, it's okay. Big, powerful feet with talons. And one other thing. All predators have this. Forward-facing eyes. Guess what? You all are predators. At one time, you did have to hunt for your food. You had to go out and catch it. And in order to do so, you needed to have forward-facing eyes to give you depth perception. Try this. Now, a lot of people don't really like it. Well, adults don't really like to do things in public. They make them look strange. But go ahead and try it. If you don't want to hear, try it at home because it is pretty neat. Cover one eye and try and touch something near you. Slowly, gently. It's not exactly where you think it is. Now try it with both eyes. You can tell exactly where it is. It's hard to do with just one eye. Prey, they have their eyes on here because they don't really need to see real far away. They need to see all around because they don't want to become food. So that's why their eyes are here. So it's prey in the front. So these guys, like I said, are all unreasonable. And when we bring them out, not only do I want you to, in your head, say what kind of a bird it is, I also want you to determine why it's not releasable and see how well you do. Sometimes it's easy, oh yeah, that wing is bad. Sometimes, oh yeah, that eye's gone or whatever. But sometimes it's not so easy, so we'll see how you do. But before we get started with that, I want to tell you how you can help an injured, orphaned, or sick wild animal. Say you should come across one. We're going to pretend that this is an animal that needs help. If it didn't before, it does now, because I just threw it. Number one, make sure it actually needs help. We don't want to see animals that don't need to be at our facility. What kind of animals would those be? Mostly babies. Spring comes around, little fledgling birds aren't real good at flying, they jump down. Oh, that's got to be an orphan, it's got to be sick, it's got to be injured, scoop it up, let's take it to Sarvey. Probably not. How about the fawn? Fawn's laying in the woods. Mom's off eating. Fawn's just fine. So watch it from a distance. If you have a pair of binoculars, use them. Yeah, how many bird nerds in the crowd here? Raise your hand, don't be shy. Admit it, come on, bird nerds. Yay, bird nerds unite. I'm a bird nerd. I got a nice pair of binoculars, not these, but I'm going to look at that thing from a distance. Oh yeah, wow, I think not only has it been there for hours, but I think I see some blood on it. Now for you little guys, you don't mess with wildlife. You go get your mom or dad or a teacher or someone who's lots older. But for all of you grown-up people, this is what you're going to do. You're going to get a pair of gloves. Why gloves? Because you want to protect yourself. Now, that animal doesn't know that you're trying to help it. It's probably going to bite or scratch. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy like these falconry gloves. Just a pair of garden gloves. You get some gloves. Get a sheet or a towel. Some people use the shirt off their back, jacket. And then get a container. It could be a cat carrier. It could be a cardboard box. You're going to go and sneak up on this guy and Gently place it in your container. Now what? I got a bird in a box. What am I going to do? I'm going to call somebody that has a license, a permit, someone who is allowed to take care of these guys. Why? Because if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to hurt the bird, you're going to get hurt or both. So it's really important that you know what you're doing and you have a proper license. You can keep a wild animal for 24 hours. Sometimes you find this stuff late at night. Sometimes you hit an owl in the car, maybe it's midnight, there's nobody open. Well, you can keep it warm, dark, and quiet until the morning, and then call somebody like Sarvey. We'll get that animal, we'll take a look at it. There's a problem right there. We can fix that. We fix it, and then what do you think we're going to do with it? Release it. That's right. Release it back into the wild where it belongs. Did I mention you? Wild animals do not make good pets. So let's get started. We're going to start with owls. And Ingrid is going to bring the first bird out. Now remember, don't shout it out, just in your head, so you know what it is. Yes, it's an owl, but what kind of owl? I don't know. Not yet, you don't even see it yet. How are you going to know if you haven't seen it? Right? It's going to be here.
Is it a snowy owl?
We're going to decide that in a minute. Who thinks this is a snowy owl? Raise your hand. Who thinks it is a barn owl? Raise your hand. All right, barn owl. That's what it is. Barn owl because, yes, it does like barns. But it also likes caves and other places, cavities, things. But sometimes you can even find this kind of a bird, this owl, this barn owl, in the palm tree. Huh? Yeah, in California these guys roost and even nest in palm trees of all things. So it doesn't have to be a barn. Now this barn owl, her name is Ia. We know is a girl because of the way her feathers look. Not always can you tell. By the way, pictures are fine and flash is fine. If you want to use flash, go ahead. Some of these guys are hams. They're just loving it. So. We know this is a girl barn owl because she's got the golden color on her front and a muddy face. She is about 7, is she 7? 7 years old? About 7 years old. And the reason we cannot release her has nothing to do with her body. Huh? Her body is fine. Her eyes are fine. Her ears are fine. Her wings, everything physically is normal. We can't release her because she is what we call psychologically damaged. She's imprinted. Imprinting happens when a bird opens its eyes and it sees a person and then it starts thinking, I must be one of you. I must be a person. This bird is so corrupted and messed up that it doesn't eat at night. It's supposed to be a nocturnal owl, but not all owls are nocturnal. I want you to know there are some that are up in the day and some that are up at dusk and dawn. Daytime owls are called diurnal and dusk and dawn is crepuscular. But the nocturnal owls include the barn owl, and she should be doing all of her activities at night. But she's decided, no, I want to be up when people are up. She doesn't like barn owls. No other barn owls. What do you put in? Boy barn owls? You put in girl barn owls? You never know. Thank you. motherly instinct, you know, and again, no, she don't want anything to do with any other barn owl. She wants to be a person. That isn't going to work very well. Can I use you as a volunteer? What's your name? Is your parents here? Are your parents here? Dad, is that all right, Dad? Can I use her for a volunteer? Where's Dad?
Yeah, he's the one that just stepped
I'm
out.
not going to do anything bad, so.
No witnesses here.
What's your name? Emily. Emily. Come here, Emily. Don't worry, I'm not going to do anything. So I just found me an Emily. I think Emily's pretty neat. Wow, she just hatched, was born. Well, I'm going to take Emily home. So I take Emily home. And she gets this little cage right here. Turn around, face that cage. Right there. Don't turn around. I'm going to feed her and clean her and do the basics and, everything that she needs to live. But she gets no television. She gets no school. She doesn't even learn other kids' language or slang. She gets no cell phone or telephone or anything. No computer. Well, Emily turns 8. Right? And I just can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, Emily. I'm going to have to let you be free. Emily, go be free. Go back to the next spot. Thank you. So, Emily is going to do all right? No. Emily's going to know how to talk to other people? No. Emily's going to know how to play their games? No. Same thing with the barn owl. When we take these guys out of their environment and away from their own kind, they don't learn the things that they need to learn to be successful as whatever they are. And so that is what is imprinting, and that is what has happened to the barn owl. Now, one more thing about barn owls. I think the barn owl is where we got the idea of how to draw a ghost. Look at it. When you draw a ghost, what do? Nice rounded head, right? Now, a boy barn owl will be really, really white. So, the ghost is white, round head, 2 dark eyes, right? Well, I think someone was in a barn somewhere, and it was a cold, dark night. There was a scratching sound in the corner of the barn. Down comes the barn owl. I'd say I saw a ghost and I would draw it just like that. Thank you. So now we're going to go to medium. We actually have some really small owls here in Washington. We have a northern pygmy owl. It's probably about this big. Little tiny guy. So that's medium. This is going to be a little bit bigger, but it's still considered medium, this next owl. And any questions so far?
So it's a pygmy owl in western Washington?
Yes. Northern pygmy owl. And it's a diurnal owl. Wow. All right. This next owl likes lots of different kinds of areas, but it gets into a whole bunch of trouble because it likes the same area the spotted owl likes. Who knows what this one is?
Barred owl.
Barn owl.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Barred, yep. Named for the bars on the belly. So periodically we get told we may or may not be able to rehabilitate the barred owl because of the whole spotted owl problem. So far they haven't actually told us we can't, but we are waiting for that to happen someday. Now, these guys are very much generalists, so they can get along with a lot of things that the spotted owl can't get along with. The spotted owl has to have a particular kind of food and a particular kind of area. These guys will be all over eating all kinds of stuff. They're going to do way better. These guys are more aggressive. Sometimes the barred owl and the spotted owl actually get together and produce something called a sparred owl. I'm not making that up, that's not a joke. And those sparred owls can actually have babies. They're not sterile, so it becomes a problem. So barred owls are really interesting though, and they've got a really interesting sound. These guys sound like a bunch of monkeys having a whole bunch of fun in the woods. Do you have a question already?
What does a sparred owl look like? Does it have bars or
It's
spots?
kind of a combination between the two.
Okay.
The sparred owl is kind of more chocolatey than it's hard to say. It depends on how much. As each one goes down the line, each generation gets more diluted, then it's kind of hard to say. So the barred owl will actually make these sounds that, I don't know if I can do it today, but I can try. I think I can do it? Or, I don't know.
You can do it.
It just sounds really weird. I mean, that wasn't really good. I probably shouldn't have done it. So, the barred owl is actually, you know, most people, this is what they're going to see. Hardly anybody gets to see an owl at night, but if you do get to see one, this is usually what you see. But usually you hear it first, and then you see it. So you'll notice that, I don't know if we can see it or not, not so much, but sometimes you can see that on the facial disc, one side is higher than the other. And that's because owl ears are actually asymmetrical. One ear is higher than the other. And that enables the owl to tell exactly how far things are. And the distance between even lets them tell what direction it's traveling in. It's amazing the way the owl is built. It's got the stealthy feathers. We have these feather boards that at the end, if you want, you can touch and you can feel the difference between owl feathers and hawk feathers. It's almost like velvet for the owl feathers. Also, owls have, you notice, I don't know, it's pretty hard to see in the back, but in front here you can see how the owl is perched with 2 toes in front and 2 toes in back. That's actually better for hunting. That's a nice configuration for catching things. And so, that's typical of owls. There's even a word for it. It's called zygodactyl. And there's a test at the end of the show. The other way is misdactyl, which is 3 in 1, which most birds have. So let's see, the toes, the ears, the eyes. Oh, those eyes. You notice how owl eyes are kind of fixed in the sockets right there? You don't really see, you know, like we can keep our heads straight and just with our eyes looking up and down and all around. The owl can't do that. There's actually a bony ring around the eyeball. And so the eyeball cannot move. And that's why the owl has to turn his head all the way around to see all the way around. You can't just use his eyes. And you look at the owl and you think, well, how does it do that? Look at that neck is huge, it's thick. I can't build a movie right here. Well, underneath all those feathers, that owl's neck is only about the size of my thumb. And long and narrow. And that's why it's able to turn its head so far and why it has to do that. What else about you?
Why can't you release him?
I think that's about it then. Oh, yes, thank you. This bird has an injured shoulder. Found at Mount Rainier by a ranger near one of those forest roads. We can assume that it probably got hit by a car, although sometimes in bad weather, the wind can throw them into things and whatnot. So it looks like it's okay, but it really can't fly that well. Its wing on one side, the shoulder is damaged beyond repair, and so that's why I have to keep this out. Thank you. Now we're going to move to is actually going to talk about this next bird. Give me a little bit of a break. Questions while he's getting the bird out.
What was the last bird's name?
The last bird's name was Perdita, with a T, T-A-D-I-T-A, Perdita. Yeah, this one's going to do most of the talking, actually. So.
Yep, she is. She's quite. What? What do you want to say to everybody, huh? Anybody know what kind of falcon this is?
Peregrine.
Right, this is a peregrine falcon. Did you know that this is the fastest bird in the world? These guys are capable of diving at speeds over 200 miles an hour. Yeah, it's been proven. They've done scientific studies and shot them on video and everything else. They drop them out of airplanes and going after like lures and bait and stuff. And they actually have done some amazing studies with these guys. Peregrines are really cool because they like to live all over the world. They'll live anywhere from way up north, almost all the way to Alaska, all the way down to South America. And some of them even migrate up to 15,000 miles in a year, which is a really long way to fly every year. And others kind of just, they pick a home and they kind of stay in the same general area. Peregrines are getting really popular actually in like the Seattle area because they like to live on the big, tall skyscraper ledges and the bridges on the, the ledges and on the bridges and stuff. And Fish and Wildlife actually sets up nesting boxes like on some of the bridges for baby season so that nesting peregrines have a place to lay their eggs and raise their young. And anyway, this is Ishta. She came to Sarvey in about 2004. She was part of a breeding program in California. So she was raised in captivity. And physically, she's fine. She can fly. She has a big enclosure she lives in, so she gets plenty of exercise. Everything about her physically is fine. She sees quite well. But she refuses to hunt. And if we released her, she'd starve to death and die. And part of the reason I think is when peregrines are young, they stay with their parents for a really long time. They learn how to hunt, they learn how to survive in the wild, and they learn how to do stuff from watching their parents. And she didn't have that luxury of being raised in captivity because peregrines used to be an endangered species. They almost became extinct due to DDT and other pesticides and stuff that humans used to spray into the ground. And fortunately, we figured out what we were doing wrong and we fixed that problem, and peregrines are no longer on the endangered list. But unfortunately for her, she never figured out to hunt. And even, though Sarvey and the place she used to live in tried different things to teach her to hunt, like giving her live food to chase around, she wanted nothing to do with it. She's kind of like a little princess, and she just kind of rules her domain and wants her food brought to her at 8:30 every morning. And if she doesn't get it, she's quite vocal about it, as you can tell, and she lets everybody know about it. She was kind of annoyed because I picked her up, traded her up to bring her up here right before feeding time, so she was a little upset about that. Anyway, more about their history. These guys are built for speed. They're kind of like the jet fighters of the bird world. As you can see, they're kind of really streamlined in appearance. She's got really long, narrow flight feathers. She's got really amazing eyesight. She sees really well. She has a special third eyelid that goes back and forth. It's called a nictitating membrane, and it kind of acts like a little windshield wiper and helps keep the dust and debris out of her eyes when she's flying, because she doesn't have sunglasses like I do. And if you look at her nose, inside of kind of her nostril area, it almost has it looks like a baffle, like a jet engine airplane would have on it. And it actually kind of helps her take in air when she's flying really fast. And even her coloration, like the black stuff around her eyes, nature gave her that kind of to help shield her from the glare of the sun when she's flying, kind of like a football player puts that black goop under their eyes before a game. So everything about them is built for their environment and the type of hunting that they do. Peregrines like to hunt birds, so she can see that she's got big, giant, long feet. Yeah, I know you don't like touching my toes. Me touching your toes. Anything else you want to say? And they actually, they do what's called hunting on the wing, which means they hunt from the air. They get up really high and then they'll go into a dive if they see a bird or even a duck or other kinds of birds that they want to go chase after, and they'll try to grab them right out of the air and they have like a little special tooth that's built into their beak, and they can actually use that to help kill their prey. They'll fly off someplace safe with it, and take it where they can have a safe meal. Because these guys, you know, they're predators, but they're only prey because there's always somebody bigger or faster than you wanting to eat you for lunch too. So they're always on the lookout for somebody trying to get them while they're trying to get somebody else. So I think it would really suck living in the bird world because you're always having to watch your back. Anybody have any questions about peregrine?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest birds that they kill? Like geese, ducks, seagulls?
I don't think they would really go after. They wouldn't go after geese. They might go after a duck. That's probably.
And they just eat the meat. They don't eat anything with bones, right?
They'll, you know, they basically when they catch their food, they catch the bird and they start plucking it. They'll like rip all the feathers off and then they'll go for the parts that they know are nutritious and healthy and leave the rest. So they know what's good and what's not good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And they're incredible birds.
Along those lines, when a bird has got chicks and stuff, then the chicks get pieces of bone and stuff because instinctively they know, I mean they don't know it's calcium, but the birds need to have the calcium. So it just depends. Sometimes a bird will eat something whole or as whole as possible, and then other times if it's big, they'll pluck it. Or not, you know, I mean, take the meat off, so it just depends. It varies. But when we talk about those imprinted animals, sometimes we gotta take care that we don't do that because we could do the very same thing. We could get a young bird in, and this is how one way that we can prevent imprinting from happening is by using a puppet. And well, it doesn't exactly look like mom, but it looks a lot better than a human face. But even better than that, we can use what we call a surrogate parent. And we have a bird up at the center that every year for 23 years she has laid eggs, and she's by herself, so of course the eggs are bad, but when we get the little owlets, great horned owlets, we go in there, take those eggs out, slip those owlets in, and she's like, wow, that was fast! But hey, she'll raise them for us. And that's what we want. We want them to imprint on their own time. Now we're going to move to hawks. And Robert's going to talk to you about this next bird.
So, chances are a lot of you have probably seen this bird before. This is one of the most common types of raptors you see around. This is a red-tailed hawk, named to their trademark red tail. Now, red-tailed hawks actually don't get the red tail until they're about a year old. During their first year of life, they're much more lighter color, as shown here on the right-hand side. And then once they reach their first year, then they start getting their adult plumage and then their trademark rusty red tail.
So first year?
First year bird.
Mature.
Adult. Now, red tails are so numerous because they're fairly adaptable birds. They eat a wide range of things. They mostly eat things like, rats, mice, meadow voles, rabbits, stuff like that. They'll eat birds if they can catch it, but they're not really built for catching birds like the falcons are. They'll even eat things like earthworms and slugs. Yeah, slugs. We've actually gotten a few red tails in at the Wildlife Center that have slug slime on the front because they've broken their wing or gotten another injury and they can't fly, so they just eat whatever they can on the ground to survive. And you quite commonly see them on fence posts and telephone poles, light poles, sometimes on the side of the road because they like to wait for some small little critter to come by and be hit by a car. And then that gives them an easy meal. That way they don't have to work as hard for it. So they know what they're doing. Now, red tails, in a lot of parts of the country, they are fairly common, but in some parts they aren't as common. New York City, for example, there really isn't much. For the longest time, there really wasn't much in the way of red tails in New York City. However, in 1991, a red tail decided to take up residence there in Central Park. And of course, a lot of people, kind of freaked out because a lot of them never seen red tails before in the wild, being in the middle of the city and all. So every year this red tail likes to take up residence at one of the very expensive hotels there in Central Park. And usually takes a mate and raises young there. And there's been several books and documentaries about this bird. They call him pale male because of his light color. So if you're interested, pick up some books and walk around for. And about that color, red tails actually generally have 3 different kind of color phases. You have the intermediate morph, which is what this guy, what she is. Then they have a light morph, which is a much more lighter color. Then they have a dark morph, which is a very, very dark color. And then that's not just a color phase that they go through, that's actually what they will be for their entire life. So sometimes you can seem a little bit lighter or a little bit darker depending on where they are. And red tails, unlike falcons, who may be the fighters of the bird world, red tails are more like the bombers of the bird world. They have broad soaring wings and they like to glide along thermals, wait for some small little critter to come by. And this particular bird, her name is Chiton. She came to us at the center in 1995. She unfortunately got hit by a car, and like most of the birds who do get hit by a car, she unfortunately lost that battle and badly damaged her right wing, so she only has one wing. So unless she spontaneously grows a wing, she's going to be with us for the rest of her life. So that's why we have her. And any questions about the red tail while we get the next bird out? Lifespan of the red tail in the wild, they're about 10 to 15 years, give or take. In captivity, they can reach about 20, 30 years. Any other questions?
There's actually a webcam that Hawkins in New York, Central Park. You can go to a site.
Oh, okay.
See it on the webcam.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Come here, let's find out.
Yeah.
Very
Well, in the wild, they're pretty sharp because they got to catch little animals with it, so they're pretty sharp. In captivity, we don't keep them as sharp because they don't need to be, and they don't do the normal things that they would do in the wild to keep their talons trimmed. So we periodically have to trim them ourselves.
Okay, so this next bird has a wingspan of this much. So when I bring her out, she has both her wings. You guys are kind of right in the line of fire here. Not only for the wings, but when she goes to the bathroom, she can shoot it out 6 feet. You sure you want to stay right there? You want to move over? Yes, please. Thank you. Sit down. Everybody sit down. Thank you. No, these are wild animals. They're just as easy. They do when they want. We can count on one doing it more than the other, but they all have their potential.
We have one that's specially trained to do it as soon as she comes out of her carrier. So that'll be a special treat for you guys.
Oh, and by the way, I can aim it. This is Kuyake. Kuyake is a golden eagle. Golden eagle. What? Lift her up. I'll put her on your head. That's Jeff over there. He's going to talk a little bit later. Kuyake is a golden eagle, and the golden eagle gets its name from the golden color on the back of their neck here. Look at that. She's a little bit upset too, because same reason, took her away from her food, so they don't like that. But she'll get to eat when she gets back. Now, golden eagles are called true or booted eagles because they have feathers going all the way down to their toes. Bald eagles, their feathers stop right about here. And if you think about it, the bald eagle's in the water a lot, right? So it probably wants to have shorts on. The bald eagle's not in the water that much. It wants long pants, trousers. So I'm going to see if she'll let me rest her on here. There. Whew.
How much she weigh?
Sheet stick. She's about 12 pounds, but after a while it feels like 120 pounds. She's going to start picking at her equipment now. She's telling me that she wants to go home and eat. Now, Gooey here is actually not releasable for a physical reason. And that physical reason, believe it or not, is her beak. Her beak is off. The top goes to the left, the bottom goes to the right. And what happened there is, when she was in her first year of life, she wasn't real good at hunting. So she started going after easy to catch stuff. Well, easy to catch stuff is usually either sick or injured. She got a sick bird and ate that sick bird, and she got the same disease that that bird had, and it did a whole bunch of damage to her mouth. Inside her mouth, some of her tongue is missing, top of the roof of her mouth is damaged, but most important is that it made her beak not aligned. So about every 8 weeks or so, we actually have to pull her down from her cage and trim it and file it and clean it and take care of it. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to eat, because this part here would keep growing and growing and growing, and it would get in the way. It'd be this big, huge thing sticking out. It also splits and makes a notch and curls in. All sorts of problems. This is what eagles use, well, all birds spray, for eating with their utensil, their fork and their knife. What they do is they have a piece of food, and they use these two talons, and stand on it, pin it down, they bend down, put the beak in, stand up, rip off the piece, and they eat it. Well, if the beak's not working right, it's not going to be able to eat. And so, that's why we have to take care of her. It's a shame to have to keep a magnificent bird like this just because of a beak. I wish she could be out in the wild making more golden eagles and doing the golden eagle thing. But if she were out there, she'd die. So she's got to be here. I'm really glad that she is able to teach you about golden eagles. Now, believe it or not, people confuse the bald eagle with the golden eagle. You're thinking, huh? How could anybody mistake a white head and tail with a brown bird? I'll tell you how. In their first years, bald eagles are actually brown. So lots of times over here on this side of the mountains, people will say, oh, I saw a golden eagle, when in fact, probably, they saw an immature bald eagle. So here's how you're going to tell. Not only do the golden eagles have feathers all the way down to the toes, yeah, here it comes. Yeah, right. he really loves this part. I don't know why, but the other thing you can tell goldens from balds is their head size. The golden eagle has a, oh, she's going to shake. Shake. Go ahead, do it. Do it. The golden eagle has a really small beak compared to a bald eagle and a small head. In fact, biologists will often call this beautiful bird a pinhead. Well, I saw 4 pinheads today. Well, I say, pinhead pride. Who wants a big head anyway? Bald eagle. So, yeah, the bald eagle. So this is Kuyake, and she's 13 years old. She's been with us for 13 years. Any questions about the golden eagle? Who wants to hold it? Sorry? What was it?
Somebody wants to hold.
You want to hold this? Yeah. Join Sarvey. We're always looking for volunteers. After 6 months of volunteering at Sarvey, you can apply to be on the education team. And if you're on the education team, then it's possible that you will start with, say, a scree towel or work your way up to eagle. Thank you.
So, Castro, do they ever get on this side of the Cascades?
Yes, actually, you can see golden eagles over here. In fact, we got one golden eagle from Gold Bar, which is on this side. It was a first-year bird. Also, you can see them migrating, and then they also are on the peninsula, believe it or not. So, but mostly these guys like really open areas with canyons and cliff edges for nesting on and that whatnot. Yes.
Can you make her shake again?
No. Never argue with the eagle either. So she said she don't want it. She don't want it. She told me she didn't want it.
Are they on the coast at all, or they stay inland?
Mostly it's going to be semi-arid desert or she came from Cooley Dam area, Grand Cooley. So it's going to be an area like that, central Washington mostly. It's going to be really wide open with canyons and I'm going to put her back, and then we're going to get to do everybody's favorite. She's a big bird, going in a small opening, so you'll probably hear some noise. Wow. Any more questions while we get the next bird out?
Anybody know what a towel store?
Pee, or the pee and the poo, birds do both at the same time. Did you know that? You did? You knew that? Wow. Let me tell you why. Birds are made for flight. So you didn't know we were going to talk about poop, did you? You came all the way this far to talk about poop, right? No. When a bird is built for what? Flying, they want to be lightweight. So they don't have a urinary bladder. You want this huge bucket of stuff. So when they go to the bathroom, you get a dark part and a light part. Well, actually, there's three things. There's the feces, there's the urates, and then your really light urine. So that's way more interesting.
See if we can aim it. Ready to go? Of course, now you're not going to do it.
So far, I'm 100% right. Every time I take her out, first thing she does is go in the bathroom. She doesn't like to go in her carrier, I guess. This is Oscate. She's almost 7 years old. She came to Sarvey when she was a baby. She's from the Olympia area. And her story is when she was a little baby eaglet, several months old, she fell out of her nest and fractured her right wing. And since it was still growing, the doctors weren't able to pin it or do anything to repair it. And so she's got like several fractures in her humerus, which is her upper wing bone. And so she's not able to fly, so she's going to have to spend the rest of her life in captivity. And I've had the privilege of working with her for a couple of years now as her handler. And it's a really, really, really amazing experience. As you can see, she hasn't completely gotten a white head. She's still got some dark stuff in there. I guess a lot of times in the captivity, their feathers start changing a little bit slower than they do in the wild. So like Tessel said, in the wild they usually start changing between 4 and 6 years old. She also weighs about 12 pounds, and she feels quite heavy after holding her for a long time too. Can you guys back up? If she gets scared, she might try to jump off the glove, and she might jump out that way. She's on a leash, so she's not going to go anywhere, but I don't want anybody to get hurt, okay? So just back up against where the other kids are. Thank you. When they're younger, when they're babies, they do have yellow feet, but they do have a brown beak, and all brown feathers, which is why they can be mistaken for golden eagles sometimes. And then once they start getting older, their beak turns yellow, their eyes start changing colors, all that kind of cool stuff. Eagles do have very amazing eyesight. They can see like a ton of time, a lot better than humans can. They can see really, really far away. And they have both monocular and binocular vision, so they can like focus really far out, and then they can change and focus really in close too, like instantly. And bald eagles, their name bald is actually not because they're bald, because they do have feathers. It's an old English word which is spelled B-A-L-D-E, which means white-headed, which is where they get their name. And you guys probably know they are the United States national bird. They beat out the turkey in a big contest to become the national bird. Most of their diet is fish. They do like hunting in rivers, streams, lakes, and Puget Sound. The further north you go, the larger they get. Like these 12 pounds. In other parts of the country, they can be as small as sometimes 6 pounds. And as Jeff can attest, in Alaska, they get even bigger than that. What else was I going to say on today? They eat fish. They like salmon. One of her favorite foods that she likes to eat in captivity is rabbit. She also gets a lot of venison because at Sarvey we get a lot of donated dead deer, that gets hit by cars and stuff. And she'll eat rats, and she'll eat a lot of different kind of stuff. And they'll also scavenge. So a lot of times, if you happen to be driving by and you see a bald eagle sitting on the side of a road eating a deer, chances are it did not hunt and kill that deer. It probably got hit by a car, and they just found an easy, quick meal. So they'll, because in the wild, hunting is not always easy, and they don't always succeed every day. So they don't always get a meal every day. So they take advantage of whatever they can. In the wild, bald eagles can live anywhere, on average, 15 to 25 years. In their first year of life, the mortality rate, unfortunately, is about 60%. A lot of them don't figure out how to hunt properly and stuff like that and survive, and then there's also disease and different things that they have to contend with. But once they make it past the first year, a lot of them have a really good chance of making it. In captivity, like this beautiful girl, she could live to be 40 years, 50 years, sometimes even longer. So hopefully she's going to be with us for a really long time. I'm not going to really take questions because Jeff's going to talk about another eagle in a little while, so I want to give him some material, and we'll probably want to do like a question and answer time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do the sign language. You like